There is an invisible tipping point where the predator suddenly realizes the prey has finally escaped. You might think their dominance is absolute, but their power is entirely dependent on your reaction. When you stop reacting, the foundation of their false reality begins to crumble. They do not lose control overnight. It is a slow, agonizing process of realization that begins the moment you detach. This is the profound psychological shift that terrifies them more than anything else in this world. They have spent years meticulously crafting a labyrinth of manipulation designed to keep you trapped, confused, and desperate for their validation. But what happens when the maze loses its power? What happens when you simply refuse to play the game anymore? The shift is not loud. It is deafeningly silent. The first distinct sign of their broken control is the sudden escalation of their fabricated outrage. When their usual subtle jabs fail to elicit a response, they panic and crank up the volume of their abuse. They will manufacture chaos out of thin air, hoping to bait you into an emotional reaction. An emotional response is their oxygen. When you starve them of it, they begin to emotionally suffocate. If provoking you with anger fails, they quickly pivot to the second sign, the desperate smear campaign. They realize they can no longer control your perception, so they become obsessed with controlling how others perceive you. They will whisper poisonous lies to your friends, family, and colleagues. They play the victim flawlessly, shedding crocodile tears to mask the terror of losing their grip on you. This smear campaign is never actually about ruining your reputation. It is about managing their fragile ego. By painting you as the unstable one, they shield themselves from the devastating truth of their own inadequacy. They need the outside world to validate the false mask they wear every day. Without an audience applauding their innocence, their entire carefully constructed identity begins to shatter. The third sign is perhaps the most pathetic, the sudden, uncharacteristic attempt at hollow kindness. You will experience the whiplash of their love bombing returning out of nowhere. They will send nostalgic messages, buy unexpected gifts, or offer apologies that sound perfect but feel entirely empty. This is not genuine remorse. This is a calculated tactical retreat designed to drag you back into the fog. They use this manufactured sweetness as a grappling hook, hoping it will catch on your inherent empathy. They study your emotional vulnerabilities like a predator studying the weakness in its prey. When they offer you this counterfeit love, they are testing the perimeter fences of your boundaries. If you accept the apology, they know they still have access. If you remain indifferent, their panic multiplies. The fourth and final sign of their absolute loss of control is total, erratic self-destruction. When the rage fails, when the smear campaign falls flat, and when the fake kindness is rejected, they implode. You will see them make reckless decisions, burn bridges with other enablers, and spiral into bizarre behavior. Their internal operating system crashes because it cannot process your absolute neutrality. Their psychological framework requires a subordinate to project their endless inner turmoil onto. When you walk away and seal the door permanently, that toxic projection bounces right back into their own mind. They are suddenly trapped alone in a room with their own demons, and there is no one left to blame for the misery. This forced introspection is the ultimate nightmare they have been running from forever. You must understand that your silence is the loudest weapon you could ever wield against them. It cuts through their deception, dismantles their grandiosity, and exposes the terrified infant hiding behind the mask. They wanted to destroy you, but in your quiet defiance, you have fundamentally destroyed their illusion. The game ends the second you stop rolling the dice and step away from the manipulative table. To truly comprehend their unraveling, we must dissect the mechanics of their behavioral pathology. Narcissism is not merely an inflated sense of self-importance. It is a profound psychological deficit. They lack a solid core identity, meaning they must harvest their sense of self from the reactions of those around them. This harvesting process is known as narcissistic supply, and it is their lifeblood. When you were entirely subjugated to their will, you were a bottomless well of this vital supply. Every tear you cried, every frantic apology you offered, and every moment of doubt you experienced fed their monstrous ego. They orchestrated conflicts specifically to watch you scramble to fix them. Your anxiety proved their significance. Your pain was the mirror in which they admired their own absolute power. The moment you stop supplying this emotional currency, their internal economy instantly crashes. Imagine a parasite suddenly severed from its host. The immediate reaction is violent, frantic thrashing. They cannot self-soothe because they never developed the emotional maturity required to do so. They rely entirely on external emotional regulation, and you have just abruptly shut down their primary control valve. Their initial disbelief swiftly transforms into cognitive dissonance. They simply cannot fathom that you, the person they deemed inferior and dependent, have outgrown their psychological prison. To protect their fragile ego from this reality, their brain rewrites the narrative. They convince themselves that you are just playing hard to get, or that you will eventually come crawling back in complete submission. But as days turn into weeks, and your silence remains unbroken, the cognitive dissonance shatters. The delusion that they are an omnipotent puppet master crumbles under the weight of your absolute apathy. This realization triggers a narcissistic injury, a deep, agonizing wound to their core self-esteem. They are forced to look at their hands and realize the puppet strings have been ruthlessly severed forever. This devastating injury is what fuels the frantic behavior we identified earlier in the analysis. The explosive rage, the calculated smear campaigns, the fake apologies, and the final self-destruction are all defense mechanisms. They are primitive psychological shields deployed to block out the overwhelming shame of rejection. They are not fighting to keep you, they are fighting to keep their false self alive. It is absolutely crucial to observe this meltdown objectively, without absorbing any of their guilt. Their chaos is no longer your burden to carry, nor is it a puzzle for you to solve with compassion. You are witnessing the inevitable collapse of a system built on deceit and emotional exploitation. The cracks in their foundation were always there, but your departure was the earthquake that brought it down. Every desperate text they send, every rumor they spread, is a testament to the power you hold now. By choosing absolute non-engagement, you become an impenetrable fortress they can never breach again. They are exhausting their energy throwing stones at solid stone walls, screaming into a void that refuses to echo back. Their loss of control is not just a temporary setback, it is an absolute, permanent defeat. The grand irony of the narcissistic dynamic is that they believe they are the strongest in the room. They view empathy as a weakness to be exploited, blinding them to the true strength of a healed mind. Your ability to heal and grow is a superpower they will never possess or comprehend. They remain trapped in a perpetual loop of manipulation, while you have broken the cycle and walked away forever. As you maintain your unyielding distance, you must brace yourself for the final dying embers of their ego. They will eventually realize that no tactic, no matter how extreme, will force you to submit again. This is where the behavioral analysis transitions into something far more profound and inescapable. They are about to face consequences on a level they can neither manipulate nor run away from. Beyond the psychological mechanics lies a profound spiritual reality that the narcissist ignores. You cannot chronically violate the souls of others without eventually triggering a cosmic rebalancing. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, does not allow such deliberate destruction to go unpaid forever. Divine retribution is not always fire and brimstone. It is often experienced as absolute isolation. The spiritual consequences of their abuse manifest silently into the fabric of their daily existence. Every lie they told to break you becomes a brick in the spiritual prison they are building for themselves. They believed they were gods in your life, dictating your worth and controlling your personal reality. Now they must face an ultimate authority, a divine force that cannot be gaslighted or manipulated. This cosmic shift begins when you decide to take your energy back and starve their dark attachments. They fed on your light and your life force to fill the endless void within their own damaged soul. By severing the cord, you cut off their spiritual food supply, leaving them to starve in the dark. The universe watches this severance and finally tips the heavy scales back toward ultimate justice. Justice for a narcissist does not look like a lightning strike. It looks like a slow, decaying rot. The karma they accumulate acts as a heavy, invisible chain dragging behind them wherever they run. They will jump from victim to victim, seeking the same high they once got from you, but the well is dry. The spiritual laws of cause and effect are slowly cornering them in a dark room with absolutely no exits. Their punishment is their own mind, transformed into a spiritual wasteland devoid of true peace or joy. You must realize that while you heal and ascend to higher vibrational states, they remain entirely stuck. They are cursed to endlessly repeat the same toxic cycles, completely blind to all spiritual evolution. This stagnation is the universe completely rejecting their deeply dark and incredibly toxic frequency. They will inevitably sense this cosmic abandonment, even if their conscious mind refuses to fully accept it. A profound sense of dread will begin to follow them, a whispering shadow reminding them of their emptiness. No amount of superficial success or new victims will ever silence the spiritual echo of their failures. They have broken the sacred laws of human connection, and the massive spiritual debt is finally coming due. Do not waste your precious energy praying for their downfall or plotting your own petty version of revenge. The divine machinery is already in motion, operating with a precision that human hands could never replicate. Your only job is to stand back, protect your peace, and trust that the spiritual scales always balance. Their greatest punishment is simply having to exist forever within their own corrupted, broken soul. This profound cosmic realization is the unseen fifth sign of their total loss of control over their reality. They thought they were the architects of their destiny, completely immune to the consequences of their malice. But the universe is a mirror, and it is now reflecting their hideous internal landscape back at them. The protective mask they wore to fool the world cannot shield them from the piercing gaze of divine sight. They are fighting a war against an invisible force that they can neither gaslight, manipulate, nor destroy. The more they struggle against their karmic fate, the faster they sink into the quicksand of their own making. You were merely the catalyst for this awakening, the brave soul who finally said no and walked away. Your departure initiated the sequence of events that will absolutely seal their eternal spiritual fate. Release any lingering attachments to their ultimate outcome and focus entirely on your own divine elevation. The universe has stepped in to handle the predator, freeing you to walk into the light of your beautiful life. As they sink deeper into their karmic debt, you must continue rising, entirely unaffected by their descent. Their spiritual destruction paves the way for the profound, unavoidable reality of their internal collapse. The final stage of this psychological and spiritual unraveling is what experts refer to as the silent collapse. Once the erratic outbursts cease and the karmic weight settles in, the narcissist enters a state of desolation. They will never admit defeat to you, but internally, the grand structure of their false self has caved in. The show is finally over. The audience has completely left, and the empty theater is now totally dark. This collapse is characterized by a deep, paralyzing depression that they desperately try to hide from the world. They may still post smiling photos online, pretending that their life is a perfect, uninterrupted success story. But behind closed doors, they are drowning in a sea of their own emptiness, unable to find the shore. The energy required to maintain their fake persona becomes too incredibly heavy for them to ever lift. During this silent collapse, you will notice their social circles shrinking at an incredibly rapid, alarming pace. The flying monkeys and enablers they once relied on begin to see through the cracks in their manufactured facade. People slowly distance themselves, exhausted by the constant drama and the underlying, undeniable toxicity. The narcissist is left entirely alone with the terrifying reality of their own deeply flawed reflection. Without an endless stream of fresh supply, their internal machinery begins to rust and quickly break down. They lose their charismatic spark, their ability to charm strangers, and their drive to keep up the charade. This is the moment they realize you were not just a weak victim, you were the crucial pillar holding them up. Without your emotional support, their entire psychological architecture simply falls flat into the dust. You must understand that this collapse is permanent. There is no genuine redemption or healing for them. They do not possess the self-awareness or humility to seek real therapeutic help and truly change their ways. Instead, they will double down on their delusions, choosing to live in a fantasy world rather than face truth. They will spend the rest of their days bitterly mourning the absolute loss of the control they had over you. As you watch this collapse from a safe distance, you will finally feel a massive weight lift off your soul. The trauma bond keeping you tethered to their chaos will finally snap, setting your spirit completely free. You will no longer view them as a terrifying monster, but as a pitiful, broken shell of a human being. Their perceived power was nothing more than a cheap, theatrical illusion that your empathy mistakenly funded. It is vital that you never reach out to offer them a lifeline during this deeply pathetic, total collapse. Your pity is just another form of supply, and extending your hand will only restart the vicious cycle of abuse. Let them sit in the dark and fully experience the devastating consequences of their own calculated actions. They made their bed with lies and manipulation, and now they must sleep in it alone without your warmth. You are the victor in this silent war, even though no medals will be handed out and no apologies ever given. Your victory lies in your profound peace, your restored sanity, and your ability to trust your own intuition. The predator lost control of you, but more importantly, you finally regained total control of your own mind. You are the sole author of your life again, and they have been completely written out of the continuing story. As we conclude this deep analysis, you must internalize the ultimate truth of this toxic, destructive dynamic. Their collapse is not your fault. It is simply the natural, entirely unavoidable consequence of your brave exit. You stopped participating in their delusion, forcing stark reality to aggressively crash down upon their head. The ultimate closure you deeply seek is found exclusively within the ongoing, beautiful process of your healing. They forever remain a cautionary tale in your past, a reminder of the sheer darkness you bravely conquered. Your future is entirely unwritten, totally free from their manipulations, their lies, and their daily drama. Step forward into the brilliance of your new life knowing you have utterly defeated the parasitic beast. The psychological chains are permanently broken, and you are finally, truly, and absolutely untouchable forever. As we enter the final phase, we must circle back to the core premise of this severe psychological abuse. The mind of the predator is a shattered mirror, projecting its fragmented reality onto your innocent soul. To shield yourself from their collapse, you must deeply understand the cyclical nature of their incurable disease. Their lonely ending is simply an inescapable loop of their own incredibly dark and deeply horrific beginnings. You escaped their twisted narrative, but their internal nightmare simply plays on a miserable, endless loop. They will seek the perfect victim to plug the gaping hole in their dark soul, but they will absolutely fail. Every new target they manipulate will hit the exact same dead end that yours did when you bravely walked away. They are a broken record skipping relentlessly over the exact same profoundly tragic, totally unavoidable beat. The fundamental truth that must anchor your healing is the permanence of their deeply ingrained condition. This is not a temporary phase of bad behavior that can be cured with enough love, patience, or understanding. You cannot fix a machine that was fundamentally built to destroy everything it touches, including its creator. Fully accepting this harsh reality is the ultimate, incredibly powerful key to your profound, lasting freedom. When you feel guilt, remember the intense relief you felt when the endless screaming finally stopped forever. The silence of your peaceful life is more valuable than the chaotic noise of their desperate, fragile ego. Protect your mental sanctuary at all costs, acting as a ruthless guardian against any attempts to return. The bridges you burned were absolutely necessary to brightly light your way out of their dark, personal hell. Your psychological elevation is the ultimate revenge, requiring absolutely no malicious intent on your part. By simply existing in a state of joy and peace, you are actively defying the core programming of their abuse. They wanted to leave you broken, but their immense malice acted as the painful pressure needed to forge a diamond. Your shining resilience is the exact, undeniable proof of their absolute, humiliating, and permanent failure. As you continue moving forward, the memory of their dark control begins to significantly fade away forever. The giant that once terrified you daily will slowly shrink into an insignificant speck in the rearview mirror. This is the natural progression of trauma healing. The poison leaves your system, and your true soul returns. You are stepping back into your authentic power, leaving their pathetic, dying ego far behind in the absolute dust. Never forget the profound lessons learned while escaping the suffocating grip of this manipulative dynamic. Your newly developed boundaries are the impenetrable walls protecting your precious energy from future vampires. You graduated from the most brutal psychological bootcamp imaginable, and you completely, bravely survived it. The deep wisdom you carry now serves as a profound, impenetrable armor of brightly glowing, highly blinding light. The predator is powerless without your participation, a harsh reality they are painfully discovering right now. Their attempts to regain dominance failed, their campaigns fell flat, and their false mask completely slipped. You absolutely won the game simply by choosing not to play on their incredibly rigged board for 1 second longer. They are trapped in their own dark mind, firmly locked in an isolating holding cell with absolutely no golden key. To ensure your safety, deeply maintain this profound level of strict, complete, and absolute total detachment. Let them self-destruct exactly as we have explored throughout this intense dive into their fractured, dark psyche. Their loss of control is definitive proof that their terrifying power was just a cheap, pathetic illusion. The toxic